12-year-old boy did this after mom took away his phone.
Oh no. Oh wow. What? Oh, see that's just crazy. They broke the window. That child destroyed that house. Because you took away the cell phone? It gotta be more to it than that. That's terrible. That is terrible. Wow. If I could lose my salvation, I'd probably lose it on that day. Wow, I broke the TV. Wow. What were the parents at? Where was anybody at?
Take the baby back.
Wow, it was a baby in there. Is anybody in there? A cat? A dog? Put a hole in the wall. Wow, I just saw the toilet. Did y'all see that? Look at the toilet. That is terrible. The window. This was a 12-year-old. Oh, the mama is messed up. Broke the TV.
Explain this to my job.
How you gonna explain that to your job? How you gonna? You can't explain that to your job. Wow, that is ridiculous. Okay. Wow, my mind goes so many places when I see something like this, because first I get empathy for the parent, because I'm trying to figure out how I would handle that situation if it happened to me. But then I get empathy for the child, because that's a lot of anger to get to the point to even do something like that. And then I start thinking, well, what sort of disciplinary action could have been taken to prevent something like this? Or could it have even been prevented at all? Let's talk about it. When a child comes into the world, they don't come with a manual. And you got a lot of advice from everybody telling you on how to best raise your child. Some say spank them, some say don't spank them. Let's listen to what Dr. Phil has to say about it.
Let's take a look at this video.
Okay, so from what you saw right there, do you think that that was child abuse? Let's hear what Dr. Phil has to say.
He was screaming, he was cussing, and so I just walked over there, grabbed him up, took him to the truck, and busted his butt.
And then dropped him in the gravel.
No, sir, I caught him.
That wasn't your plan, but...
No, sir, I caught him. That's why I had his shirt. I did not drop him in the gravel. You need to look a lot closer.
What you're doing right there is absolute, unqualified child abuse. Now,
So
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, that would be judged to be child abuse. I'm trained as a forensic psychologist. I'm telling you, that would be considered child abuse. And that's not your intention.
no, not at all.
I know it's not your intention, but that's not okay.
Okay, well, obviously, a lot of people agree with what Dr. Phil just said, but a lot of people have a different perspective on this, and I want to show you a clip from another panel who was having the same conversation.
parenting through anger, we can get over the precipice where we lose control of ourselves. And for me, that is not conducive to teaching or discipline. Because discipline, the definition, is to teach, to correct, and to redirect. Anytime anger comes into play, you lose it. It no longer becomes about the child and helping them learn and
spank,
correct.
not
Lose your cool.
display anger.
But even if you look at a child,
If you talk to them first, I talk to my children first and tell them why they're getting a spanking. And then they know. Kids are a lot smarter than we take them.
Yeah.
So why
So why
do
do we have to keep beating them and
why do we
submitting
let them No. Spare
Why
the
do the
rod.
smacking?
Spare the rod. Spoil the child.
Okay, so whenever somebody says spare the rod, spoil the child, they're referring to a biblical reference from Proverbs 13:24. But that actual phrase isn't in the Bible. That particular phrase comes from a narrative poem from the 1600s from an Englishman by the name of Samuel Butler in his poem titled Hudibras. The actual biblical reference that they're pulling this from says, "He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him." And in biblical times, the rod was used by the shepherd to herd the sheep. But the purpose of the rod was to guide them and to protect them and keep them from danger. The purpose was not to hit the sheep into submission. We also see in Proverbs 23:13, don't fail to discipline your children. The rod of punishment won't kill them. And from Proverbs 29:15, we understand that to discipline a child produces wisdom, but a mother is disgraced by an undisciplined child. Now, all of these passages you gotta read within context, but I'm not going deep into the context today because I want to get back to the video. But just remember that we're living under grace. So the moment that you raise your hand in anger to discipline your child, you've completely missed the mark on everything that these passages mean. And I would then encourage you to read Ephesians 6:4 or Colossians 3:21 because it warns the parents not to abuse the power and authority that they have over their children because it might provoke the child to have righteous anger. Anyway, back to the video.
So why is every spanked child should be perfect then? Since
No.
I believe I could get a better understanding, especially until I can actually reason with him and get him to understand what's going on, that he better understands reward and punishment at a younger age, because now I can't sit here and tell a 3-year-old like you shouldn't do this and that and explain everything out. But if I tell him not to do something and spank him for doing it, he's going to remember that. He's not going to do it again. I don't spank my kids out of anger.
Right.
I spank my kids out of correction. I won't hit my child if I'm angry.
Right.
So if I tell you to do something one time, I'm going to spank you after that. I'm not going to tell you to do something 10 or 12 times. Now I'm pissed off and I'm going to hit you. No. Like my parents told me, delayed obedience is disobedience.
Right.
Okay, I understand what he's saying, but not every child responds well to getting whooped or getting spanked. And we found that out on child 1, 2, and 3, that we gotta discipline each of them in a different way. We thought our oldest child was gonna be the problem child. Let me tell y'all a quick story. When my oldest little girl was about 1 year old, we were at a buffet and it was time to go from the buffet, or she got upset about something. So anyway, I picked up my oldest daughter, getting ready to go, and she proceeds to start beating me up in the restaurant. I mean, just pap, 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 just beating me up in the restaurant. So my wife, she turns away because she don't want my daughter to see her, that she just laughing. She is just cracking up. Meanwhile, I'm in here just pop, pop. My daughter is beating me up in this restaurant and I'm embarrassed. So we get back to the car, I have a discussion with my wife and I'm like, hey, listen, we are not about to have one of these
Catch me outside. How about that?
situations going on. So now I got in my head that as my daughter gets older, she's 2, she's 3 years old now, that when something happens, that I'm going to discipline her. Something happens, I don't remember exactly what it was, but my daughter did something that I didn't approve of, and I said, you know what? I'm going to discipline her and I'm gonna give her a spanking. So I pop, pop, pop. No, that hurt me more than it would ever hurt her, because the way that my daughter looked at me when I did that, it was like I had betrayed her. She looked at me like, you were supposed to be who I run to for comfort. You're supposed to be who I run to for security and safety. And you did this to me? That's when I told my wife, listen, I can't discipline the girls like that. I'm not going to be able to do that. So I discipline my children, my little girls, in a different way. Now, my little boy, he's 22 months old right now. So we're far off from talking about disciplinary action in that way. But I don't have those same sort of apprehensions towards my little boy. And the reason for that is because I know that if I don't show my son authority in the household and don't cultivate some sort of obedience within the household, he is going to meet that authority when he gets into the real world. And the real world may not have his best interests at heart. They may not care about him like daddy does or like mommy does. And so if he bucks that authority, it may not be a pleasant situation. Now, I'm not saying that the form of discipline that I'm going to give to my son is going to be in the form of spankings or whoopings. That's definitely not going to be my first move on the chessboard. However, if it's something that can help to save his life or keep him from danger, then that's definitely not something that I'm opposed to. If I see my son getting ready to touch the fire in the fireplace, I'm definitely probably going to tell him a stern no. But if I continue to see my son trying to play in the fireplace, if he falls into that fireplace, it's going to hurt him a lot more and hurt me as well a lot more than it would by me just pow, pow. No, that's hot. Because in theory, you want a child to know that there's consequences for a certain type of action. If I do A, then the consequence is B. So you let the child learn how to self-discipline and theoretically start to make the right choices. Now, this works well in theory, in my opinion, because you have some children that are going to test your gangster like I did when I was a child and like my middle little girl does now. For example, if you draw a line and say, don't cross that line, some children are going to walk right up to that line and stand on it. And if you don't check them while they are standing on that line, you better believe that their little pinky toe is going to cross over that line. And if you don't discipline them when that pinky toe has crossed over that line, the next thing is that foot is going to cross the line. And if you don't further discipline when that foot crosses the line, the next thing is their whole body is going to go across the line. And now they have completely crossed the line. So what do you do when they cross the line? That's the question. And here's what I think is the key in my unprofessional advice. I think every kid, every child has a certain unique value system that they do not want taken away from them, or a consequence that they do not want to happen. And if you figure out what that is, you will win the discipline and obedience game every time. You have to understand that traditional parenting may not always be the right thing. So don't get discouraged when what worked for one parent and their child does not work for you and your child. The key is that you do discipline them in a manner that works for your child, and don't let them run all over you. Anyway, these are just my thoughts. What do you think? Should you spank your child or not spank your child? I hope this helps somebody. Peace.